The UN General Assembly is meeting in New York today as the idea of a two-state solution in the Middle East gains more international support. France says it is now joining the growing list of countries formally recognizing a Palestinian state. French President Emmanuel Macron sat down with Face the Nation ahead of this week's meeting, and he says recognizing a Palestinian state was the only way to bring about an answer to the ongoing conflict.
So right after this recognition, we have a first phase, which is, I would say, the emergency phase. Ceasefire, release of all hostages, and third, restoring the humanitarian roads and the stabilization of Gaza. We have a second package, which is the day after. We will revert on that, how to organize Gaza in terms of governance, security, and reconstruction. And third package, the perspective of the two states. But recognizing a Palestinian state today is the only way to provide a political solution to a situation which has to stop.
And his remarks coincide with Israel ramping up its own offensive in Gaza City, conducting multiple strikes in the territory's capital over the weekend. And for more on the UN General Assembly meeting, CBS News national security contributor Samantha Vinograd joins us now. She is also a former assistant secretary for counterterrorism at the Department of Homeland Security. Sam, thank you very much for talking to us here. It's not just France, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia have also recently joined now dozens of countries to recognize a Palestinian state. So with the U.S. and Israel seemingly on their own not doing so, what are the possible implications here?
Well, Nancy, certainly this issue of Palestinian statehood and the situation in Gaza is going to dominate discussions at the UN General Assembly this week. This matter has been front and center for decades, ever since the creation of the State of Israel, and is now moving ahead full throttle based upon a desire by many countries, the majority of UN member states, in fact, to put pressure on Israel to end the war in Gaza. However, UN Security Council action as it pertains to Israel's conduct of operations in Gaza, as well as recognition of a Palestinian state, is going to be stymied by the fact that the United States is a permanent member of the UN Security Council and can veto any resolution calling for Palestinian statehood. What we should expect is for the United States to consider countermeasures against countries that recognize the state of Palestine. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio actually warned that Israel itself could engage in a counter-reaction to this momentum behind recognizing a state of Palestine.
And Sam, you bring up the UN Security Council. This morning, it just held an emergency meeting following the recent incursion by Russian fighter jets into Estonian airspace. What could happen as a result of this that could potentially help Ukraine in its war with Russia?
Well, unfortunately, Russia is also a permanent member of the UN Security Council. And so any action by the UN as it pertains to punishing Russia, sanctioning Russia, condemning Russia for its incursions into not just Estonia, but also Poland, and likely further incursions into other Baltic states will be stopped by Russia. So I don't expect any action out of the UN Security Council. What I do expect is for NATO to start to make some adjustments to its force posture in the region, to perhaps try to move assets around, to position them further in Baltic states, to try to deter Russia from engaging in any other kinds of action.
Busy few days ahead. Sam Vinograd, thank you very much.
Thank you.